Hey everybody, Matt and Ben here from Skyfire Consulting. It's great to see everybody. I feel like we've been locked up in the house for quite some time now, and we just wanted to get on here and start having a conversation that we've been talking about having for a while. But I will tell you, it is nice to talk about something other than coronavirus and the Tiger King. So, welcome to our first Facebook live webinar thingy, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt Sloane. I'm the CEO of Skyfire Consulting, and Ben on the other end there. Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Ben Kroll, and I am the COO of Skyfire Consulting.
And together we have worked on, with our team, about 300 public safety drone programs all around the country, big ones, little ones, and been through the ringer on this stuff for the last going on 6 years now. So one of the things that you guys have heard a lot about, I'm sure, is the program that's going on in Chula Vista, California, that was part of the IPP program. So Ben, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on what that program was all about?
Yeah, and maybe do you actually, before I do that, can you just give a super brief overview of IPP real quick, just in case anyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So it stands for Integration Partnership Program, and it was an effort by, it was passed down from the president to the FAA, basically saying, we're going to pick 10 cities and sort of groups of people around the country to test out some new technology, advanced, ConOps for drones. So one of those was the city of San Diego, which also included in that group Chula Vista, and then that's where we came into the picture.
Awesome. Yeah, and so just to kind of keep going with that, we were asked to come help be a part of Chula Vista's involvement with the IPP program. This was kind of born out of their some of the innovations that they had done in Chula Vista with community policing, and it's a very forward-thinking community and police department, and they're trying to integrate technology, and so this was kind of a perfect fit, and they were able to kind of create a program, what they called a DFR, drone as a first responder, where they actually wanted the drone to become, instead of a reactive tool, a proactive tool. So something was coming through dispatch that needed a call. Typically, an officer can get dispatched, show up on scene. If they have a drone, they can fly the drone. But the idea is, what if we could get the drone there ahead of the responding officer and be able to see what's going on before the officers even arrived, and allow them the ability to see what's going on before they show up on scene. So that data is like super important, obviously, for responding officers. So they built a concept of operations around that and went to the FAA and said, this is what we want to do. And of course, this required them to be able to fly beyond visual line of sight. So for this to work correctly, the idea was to have a watch commander in the watch commander's office, and then be able to operate that drone remotely. When we talk about beyond visual line of sight operations, this is not necessarily it's not like there's somebody sitting in the watch commander's office and the call comes in and they just send it out. We still have somebody on the roof at Chula Vista who's watching the airspace, and if they see another aircraft or another threat or another drone, they can actually bring that person on the roof can actually bring the drone down and kind of take over from the person that's operating from inside. So I would say it's not a full beyond visual line of sight operation, but it does allow for the drone to be flown beyond visual line of sight, as long as someone is still operating or watching the airspace.
Cool. Yeah, no, thanks for giving that background. I want to just briefly, first of all, say that we are watching for comments. So if you guys have comments or questions, just go ahead and post them here on Facebook and we will get to them. But there does seem to be a bit of a delay, so it may take us a second to get it. I want to give you guys kind of the current statistics. They're actually updated regularly. If you just Google Chula Vista drone program, they'll give you kind of the live statistics. But so far, since they started that program, the drone has responded to 1,975 calls. It's been just a year and a couple months. So that's like 10 times the number of calls that any other client has ever run before.
Right.
They have done 263 arrests that they attribute to the drone being there. They were avoided, this one I think is super important, they avoided dispatching a patrol unit at all 466 times. And as we know, any interaction could be a deadly interaction in law enforcement. And so whether it's a traffic accident and you're worried about getting hit by another car, or something, domestic violence or something, where you're putting an officer's life in danger, it's really important to avoid that when possible. The drone, out of those almost 2,000 calls, the drone was first on scene 883 times, and the average response time was 162 seconds, which is like unheard of anywhere. So it's very the statistics are incredible, and it's really amazing to kind of watch what they've been doing out there. I wanted to be clear about something else too, is that we assisted with the FAA part of this, but the majority of this program was done and is operated currently by Chula Vista PD, not by Skyfire. So I want to just make sure that we're clear about that. But we've worked really, really well with those guys. So now that we sort of have the background on Chula Vista, I want to sort of take the conversation out of Chula Vista. We've been getting a ton of phone calls and emails from existing customers and others who really want to know, okay, well, how do I do this at my department? And so I think that was the real reason we wanted to kind of have this discussion, was to talk about, like what's possible, does this translate outside of IPP, what timelines and all that kind of stuff. So Ben, why don't we get into that a little bit? So what do you tell people now who are like, all right, this is cool, now I want to do it, it's my turn? What do you say to them?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting, kind of what happened with IPP and the intent of IPP and kind of how that's playing out right now. Our real hope with this, and what the FAA was telling us through IPP, and as we kind of worked through trying to get some of these approvals and kind of writing the safety cases, is our hope was that the FAA would be able to kind of develop a process for this, right? Like some type of streamlined process where other agencies could just say, all right, we've checked all these boxes, now we can operate the same way that someone like Chula Vista is operating. It hasn't played out that way so far, unfortunately, but that was certainly our hope. It looks now like agencies, this is still an option, but there's some, what we've noticed is there's some pushback within the FAA to other agencies doing something like what Chula Vista has done. IPP really allowed them to push the envelope, and I think that we're sensing some reluctance to sort of kind of push that out to everybody right now. Now, it's still an option. It's still something that can be applied for, both on the Part 107 side and on the public aircraft operation side, or the COA side, for those that have COAs. So it involves, right now, it's going to involve building a safety case. And we just don't know what the appetite is right now at the FAA for that. So some things got put on hold. I've actually applied for a couple more BV loss operations with agencies similar to the ConOps that Chula Vista is using. And we've just had kind of delay after delay after delay. We actually have some movement now. So I have a meeting with the FAA actually next week to try and kind of move some of this forward with some other agencies. So we'll be able to update after that what's going on. But right now it's a little bit of a holding pattern for anybody that's trying to do BVLOS. I think this is just my opinion. I think that the FAA may be looking for more hardware mitigations like radar on aircraft to really be able to fly beyond visual line of sight.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to point out too. I think that as you were kind of going through this process, I think all of us were looking at it and going like, hey, this is really awesome. How are they actually doing this? So like, we can't believe they actually approved it. And I think even some people within IPP, were asking that same question, but we kind of just went with it. So, I think, long and short of it is, this is still happening. It's still doable. What do you think, but it's going to take a little time, I should say. That's the other half of that sentence. What do you think about hardware mitigations? What do you think about, what's it going to take to make this doable on a regular basis? And the follow-up question to that is beyond line of sight the only issue here? Like, could you do it if you could keep the drone in sight?
I'm sorry, can you do what if you
Can you do like a
drone?
DFR program like Chula's doing, but keep
Oh,
the line of sight?
yeah, no, that's a great question. There's a lot of great questions in there. I think that you could right now. There's some, what was the term that we were talking about the other day? The low altitude,
Yeah, short distance, low altitude is
or close
something.
proximity,
Close
CPLA.
proximity. Yeah,
Yeah,
CPL.
close proximity, low altitude. Yeah, I mean, I think there might be some different options in there. I think that to step out, to step into BV loss or to step out into anything else like that, uh, thing that people need to understand is that there's no form for that right now. Like, you don't just go and fill out a form. It's individual, it's case by case right now, and it's going to be that way for a while. So each agency is going to actually have to build their own safety case for this kind of stuff, and that safety case then will be based on how they can conduct whatever type of operation they're trying to conduct safely within the national airspace system. And so, because every agency is in a different location and a different type of airspace, then they're going to have to kind of do that kind of one-on-one, if that makes sense.
So, I mean, I guess those of us that had the hope that the IPP was going to accelerate all of this and that there would just be a process that came out, that doesn't seem to be what happened.
That's right.
Not that all this was in vain, but I mean, because we did get a lot of really good data, but it's not like they came out and said, okay, here's the form to fill out. Now we can all do BVLOS.
Yeah, which I mean, I think maybe that was naive of us to kind of hope for that would come out of all this, but that's certainly not the case. And then I forgot to answer your question just about hardware mitigation for safety. I think that, when we look at like one of the core tenets of, the FAA and kind of how they approve and, mitigate and allow for safety, one of the core tenets is the ability to see and avoid other aircraft. And when you're flying a drone and you're just flying it and it goes beyond visual line of sight, you no longer have the ability to see and avoid other aircraft. Maybe you have an FPV view, but that's not enough, right? You need some type of hardware that's able to, see other aircraft out there. And I just think that that's where we're probably going to have to get to. And we just don't, unfortunately, right now, we don't have a lot of hardware or technology solutions. There is some stuff out there, and there is some stuff being tested within IPP and at some of these different testing sites across the country. Which is exciting, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, you sort of got into this a little bit too, but BVLOS is not the only waiver that we're looking at here. So we're talking about flying over people. You're potentially talking about night ops, and those are all separate waiver processes. And then of course, flight in controlled airspace, depending on how you're operating and where you're operating. So it's not just BVLOS that's sort of the issue here. One of the things I do want to talk about real quickly, without boring to death the audience here, tell me about what is Part 135 and where does that all factor into all this?
Yeah, so 135 is basically charter operations, right? Like on demand, you need, if you look at it from an aircraft perspective, if you wanted to go rent a private plane and have someone, have this plane and crew fly you from, say, one city to another, then that's considered on demand and requires 135. And that certification is also similar certification to what would be required for someone to carry goods and cargo to be able to deliver things to somebody, like using a drone. And so I think we saw, was it UPS? Did UPS get their 135?
They did, yeah.
And it's a process, right? I mean, it's the 135 process is no joke. You work with a team at the FAA to try to get that. But it is, it is another, avenue to be able to transport people and goods on demand for hire.
Yeah, and that primarily applies, I think, on the commercial side versus on the public safety side. But UPS was probably the first drone operation to get a 135, but they certainly won't be the last. And anybody like Amazon, Google, whoever else wants to try and do FedEx, they're all going to need to go down that road as well. So one other thing I want to kind of talk about is the actual aircraft, because there's a lot of talk, obviously, about the safety and security of Chinese aircraft. We've been having this conversation for a long time. I will give you, this is my personal opinion, is that, I'm not sure that it's as much of a security concern as it is a, trade concern, a political thing. And I think there were security concerns at one point, but I think to their credit, I think DJI has done a lot to sort of mitigate that. Not dismissing anybody's concerns about it, but that's just what I've observed. But there is obviously also a big push, thanks to coronavirus and the economic downturn that's come with it, to buy American. So let's talk about that for a minute. What is Chula Vista using aircraft wise, and what do you think that's got longevity, or there are limitations? What are we going to see from the future?
Yeah, what I know that they were using up until recently, and then I assume this is still the case, but they're using DJI aircraft, I believe an M210 with a Z30. And you think about police calls and those the types of calls that they get. Obviously, that's a real good solution for them, especially with that zoom camera. But one of the limiting factors right now is the flight time on that for them. So I don't know. I don't know if they're exploring other aircraft or different aircraft right now. But the M210 has certainly worked out. Like you were talking about the data. I mean, that data is compelling. I mean, that's incredible. You show that to anyone in law enforcement, and that's like pretty amazing what they're getting out of that. And that's with the 210 with limited flight time, and but with the zoom camera. And I think there might be some videos, I think, that they released actually that are public now, that we can share with people too, that kind of details the program and kind of shows how it works.
There's that fantastic, obviously a tricky situation, I should say, domestic dispute that they released on the local news, where somebody was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Somebody was in a car chasing somebody on a motorcycle and trying to knock them off. But that really illustrates what's great about the Chula Vista program to me, because that call, first of all, it's moving. So just to try and find the location of the call would be difficult enough. But they're actually watching domestic violence go down live. And so they have the ability to kind of come back and charge those things and have some evidence. And you see that, by the time they settle on a final location to have the big showdown, it's still, a little bit of time before the first officer gets there, because the whole scene was moving. So,
right. And then think about all the data that officer had when he showed up, right? Like he knew exactly what was going on, or she knew, exactly what was going on. And that's why it's just so, like, you think about how much safer, this has the potential, and already is, making the city safer, and the officers, safer there. So
yeah, no, it's really fascinating data. So we do have a question from our buddy Tim Byrne up from the Indianapolis region. He said, does Chula Vista have anything in place to address the see and avoid issue?
So part of it's a great question. That is a great question. Yes. So their see and avoid, their main see and avoid mitigation to address that is having someone on the roof. Even though the drone is being, technically there's some split hairs in terms that we use as far as like who's actually controlling the drone and these types of things that has to do with some software and hardware integration. But essentially, the watch commander is sending commands to the drone, and the drone is being geofenced in an area. And if the drone determines that command from the watch commander keeps it within the geofence, then it'll execute that command as far as where it goes and what it zooms in on. But the mitigation, and to answer your question, there is somebody on the roof, and that person on the roof is watching the entire airspace. So the drone can go beyond visual line of sight, obviously, of the person, the watch commander in the office. It can go beyond visual line of sight, visual line of sight of the person on the roof, but that person is watching the airspace. And if they see another aircraft or another threat, they can actually take control from the watch commander of the drone and then command the drone to lower, move, go to a different location, land if necessary. But that's the current mitigation for that.
And it's important there in Chula Vista too, because they have, Camp Pendleton's not far from there. Mm-hmm. They've got Coronado Island. So there's a lot of giant aircraft coming in and out low. And
ton of airspace and controlled airspace and air traffic control towers in there and all that. And a part of kind of doing all this speaks to kind of the process is, we had to go and kind of coordinate with everybody and make sure that all these different, air traffic control and controlling agencies were okay with this and the mitigations.
And not for nothing, they also have a big international border with Mexico, about
right. Just down the street, right?
I mean, literally, yeah. You can see Mexico from Chula Vista.
Yeah.
So, no, that's fascinating. So, we were sort of getting to this before Tim's question, but Tim, thank you for asking. Hopefully, we answered that for you. One of the things you guys have probably heard from us recently is that we acquired a majority stake in Viking UAS, which is an American drone manufacturer. You haven't seen a lot from them publicly because a lot of the stuff that they're doing is for the military and for other clients where, they sort of handed off the technology and didn't put their name on it. But we've seen some of the stuff. It's incredibly cool, and we're already working on some projects, bigger aircraft. We're working on a very small aircraft that we think will have some relevance in the SWAT community. I would say we are not in the we're not looking to be mass market drone manufacturers, but certainly in certain niche areas, some of the special projects we're working on, some custom built stuff there too. So if you guys have questions or thoughts about some stuff that you aren't seeing that you could really use, I have no interest in building a Mavic competitor. I think that that technology is out there. It's very good. I don't think we're looking to reinvent the wheel. But fill in the gaps, I think is the better way to.
That's a great point, Matt. And I just want to reiterate to anybody that's watching this right now, or anybody that will watch this in the future, is Viking is their capabilities are really pretty impressive with what they can put together as far as systems. And just to reiterate that, we're not looking to compete with DJI here on any of this stuff, but we think we have some real kind of purpose-built solutions for some of the stuff that you all are doing in public safety.
Yeah, and not just DJI too. I mean, that's across the board. There's some great other aircraft out there, and we certainly aren't trying to reinvent the wheel there. But some Autel and Skydio and Impossible and whoever else is working on stuff. There's some great stuff out there, but there's some definitely some holes there. I would say on the very small side and on the very large side. So one of the things, one last thing I wanted to address too, and it's not really so much part of the beyond line of sight consideration, but overweight. As we're talking about bigger and bigger aircraft, that's something you have some experience with as well too, Ben, getting some overweight waivers. So if you would just give us the brief overview, like, is it possible? Is it not possible?
Yeah,
complex, not that complex.
Yeah, the brief overview is yes, it's possible. Unfortunately, and I'll just spend a minute on this here real quick for anybody that's looking at doing anything over 55 pounds. Unfortunately, Part 107 is limited to under 55 pounds. That's it. There's no waiver. We have all these waivers in Part 107 that we can do for, beyond visual line of sight and flight over people and flight at night, all these airspace waivers and all that stuff. For over 55 pounds, Part 107 doesn't apply to you. So you actually have to go through a new process called 44-7. Gosh, sorry, I blanked on the number. There are a lot of numbers. It essentially replaced, if anyone remembers 333, what that was. But essentially, you have to petition the government for relief from a specific rule or part of the rules, and you have to create another safety case and a concept of operations, and then be able to explain to the FAA and the country why you should have a relief of this regulation. And then what happens if you do have a drone that's over 55 pounds is you end up getting a very specific certificate of authorization for that aircraft. And so you need some data on the aircraft, and you need, and it's just a process that you go through with the FAA at regulations.gov. And if anyone has any specific questions about that, I'm happy to fill you in on that. But it is doable. It's just a process that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, no. And so, I guess if we can sort of summarize everything that we talked about today, it's doable, but it's going to take time. So,
yeah.
And I think that's sort of the name of the game at the FAA, and that's not a knock on them. We want this to be safe. So
right. And that's a great,
take a while, yeah.
That's a great point, because what that really speaks to is what the FAA says. And the FAA says, like, look, it's not really our job to go figuring out all of these things. We are asking industry to come to us and say, this is how we can do this operation safely. And then the FAA can weigh in and say, okay, we think that's safe enough. We think it's not. Here's kind of what you need to do. One thing I've learned with the FAA over the years, and the FAA will tell you this too, is keep going until you hear no. If you don't hear the word no, keep going. And there's a way, and there's a way, and just kind of keep pushing and asking. And that's kind of been our attitude, is like, we just say, all right, we're going to see if we can do this, and until, the FAA says no. So, and that's seemed to work out so far.
Well, and to that point too, like you said, I mean, it's not the FAA's job to be innovative. It's not their job to figure out how we can all do this. Their job is to keep us safe. And so if we want to do something, it's on us to figure out how to do that safely. And, we all enjoy, well, I should say we did when we were all on airplanes and traveling around the country, all enjoyed, the safest airspace in the world. And that's primarily because the FAA has so many rules and has so many processes, and as frustrating as it can be, there's a reason for it. And as you said, you just have to kind of keep going until you figure out a way to do whatever you're trying to do safely.
And I will also say the majority of folks that we've worked with at the FAA have been awesome to work with, and really wanting us to succeed, wanting public safety to succeed, wanting drones to succeed. That's really been our experience so far. So we just continue to work within that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I would echo that. And frankly, I didn't expect that when we first started talking to the FAA. I thought they were just going to, be a pain. But no, we've met, I would say 99% of the people we've dealt with at the FAA are very much looking to try and find solutions and help us through the process, as difficult as it can be. And frankly, sometimes they think it's too difficult too, but that's, Congress and all that as well. So the last thing I guess to kind of bottom line this is, the two things that I've heard you say in the answer to all these questions are, you're going to need a safety case and you're going to need a concept of operations. So are those the two things that everybody should be working on right now? If they see themselves doing this in the future, what can you start doing now to prepare?
Yeah, I think so. I would say if you're able to, talk to people that are in the know with this, because it's easy to say like, oh, just go write a safety case, or, there are very specific things that the FAA wants to see, especially when we start getting into beyond visual line of sight. There's a certain kind of a safety case model that they want to see, and certain specific things that they want to see in there. So reach out to somebody that's gone through this, and it's a great opportunity for me to plug the line that I've been saying since, we started this thing 6 years ago, which is that, like, we're here, Matt and I are here, our whole company is here to provide you with information. And we don't turn anybody away on information. If you wanted to, if there's a service or training or something you wanted to get from us, we can do that. But as far as we sort of think, and we've felt this way from the very beginning, that if we can provide you with the right information, that's best for everybody. And so we are available 24/7. I get texts at 2 a.m. from the other day. I got a text from a SWAT team that was having trouble with one of their aircraft, and we respond to those, and that's something that we think helps the industry as a whole. So we're here. I would just say talk to somebody in the know, get some guidance on kind of how to do a safety case, and we certainly can provide that if you want to do it on your own. So
No, that's great. And, I'll just add there, and this may be a separate topic as well too, but many of you know that we stopped selling equipment earlier this year, and that was a very thought out decision. And frankly, the reason we decided to do that is because we want to be a better source of information for you and not just the sales guys. And frankly, there's lots of great aircraft for sale from a lot of different companies, and we want you guys to know that we're not in bed with any of those companies except Viking. We are now in bed with Viking, but we want to, help you guys find the right stuff, whether it's from, DJI or any other company. We felt like we couldn't be an objective voice unless we kind of removed ourselves from that equation. So buy the drone wherever you like. We have some ideas of where you could, and we could help you do that as well. But then come to us for the information and the training, and that may be a separate topic. But speaking of separate topics, I've really enjoyed doing this. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening as well too. And it's certainly something we want to keep going, not just while we're cooped up with coronavirus, but I think it's something we want to do regularly. So if there are topics of conversation that you guys would like to see us do in the future, we're going to, I think, do this weekly, right, Ben? Or did I just sign you up for something you didn't?
No, hey, we're here till what's our line right now? We're here till June.
Yeah. I'm not busy till between now and at least
Yeah.
June 1st. So, yeah, no, we hope. Oh, actually, we just got a question from our buddy Mike Bryant before we close up here. What do departments need to do for record keeping? So I think that's a big topic of conversation, and certainly we will do a separate one of these on software. But yeah, Ben, can you talk a little bit about what are they required to do for record keeping, both for the FAA and also for their local jurisdiction?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It's sort of a bit of a complicated answer. It depends on what kind of regulatory framework you're working under, right? So you can either fly under, if you're an agency, you can either fly under Part 107 or you can fly under a COA or Certificate of Authorization. And if you don't know what those terms are, please send us a question and we can help you offline with that because there's some more information we probably want to give you there. But on the Part 107 side, I mean, it really comes down to different agencies' policies, that we don't have a whole lot out there. And people are trying right now to kind of create policy and, what that should look like in record keeping. But on the Part 107 side, there's just really not a whole lot. On the COA side and the public aircraft operations side, you are required to do a monthly report. And this includes that you have to submit to the FAA. And this includes where you flew, any operational issues that you had, any malfunctions, all these kinds of things that the FAA wants to know about on the public side. On the Part 107 side, just not a whole lot there. It's sort of being left up to individual agencies right now.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's, as far as the flight documentation is concerned, of course, as far as the record keeping that you need to keep for your internal processes, that's very much a state or local issue and something that you should discuss with your district attorney or your chief, talking about, records retention and chain of custody and, what you need to keep and how long and whether you record or don't record.
Yeah, yes, thank you for adding that. That's a great point. And also make sure that you're taking a look at the state laws that have been enacted, because there are some agencies that are potentially running afoul of some certain state regulations that have been created, and that's created some problems. But again, that's something we can sort of help with too, and kind of guide people if they have questions on that.
Yeah, and because we've worked with with over 300 agencies at this point, we have lots of you guys out there who have great policies that you've helped design and have been willing to share, and so we can be the matchmaker there and put you together with some other agencies who have some great policies that they can share. Bill, thanks so much for the topic suggestions you put in there. So we'll take those into account too. And yeah, it seems like the response to this thing already has been pretty great. So we should plan on doing this once a week. But I don't know what next week's is going to be. We'll get back to you guys here shortly. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Ben, thanks so much for joining us here. And
yeah, and can I just add? I just wanted to say thanks to all you guys for the work that public safety is doing right now. I mean, I don't think any of us have obviously ever seen anything like this. So I'm just so grateful personally for you guys out there showing up every day and keeping us safe. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for adding that too. And I echo that as well too. And if there's certainly, I don't know that there is much we can do to help other than just stay home and keep more people from getting sick. So we're all trying to do that. We're all working from home. But if there is something else we can do to assist, certainly don't hesitate to ask. If you have any more questions, obviously you can drop them here on our Facebook page. Our website is skyfireconsulting.com. You can email us, info@skyfireconsulting.com. And we'd love to help you out with whatever your needs are. And I guess that'll wrap it up. So we will talk to you guys soon. And thanks again so much for watching.
See you, everybody.